Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll commence the session in a couple of minutes, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this brief session, inshallah ta'ala, I want to introduce a brand new course being presented by the Arabic School, and that is the course on Tasrif al-Izzi. It is a continuation of a number of programs which we're offering, covering the technical sciences of the Arabic language, Nahu, Sarf, and Balagha. We have a course running which is covering Nahu, decoding Qatr al-Nada, which is taught by Ustad Mustafa al-Qabbani, Barakallahu fi. And we have another course covering Balagha, Ilm al-Bayan in particular. Inshallah ta'ala, we aim to have sequels to that course as well, covering Ilm al-Ma'ani and Ilm al-Badi', inshallah. And this particular course is being offered to cover Ilm al-Sarf through a classical text, which is Tasrif al-Izzi, also known as Tasrif al-Zanjani, written by, authored by Al-Imam Izzuddin al-Zanjani, rahimahullah. So this course, inshallah ta'ala, is going to be a complete coverage of the text of Tasrif al-Izzi. Tasrif al-Izzi is a brief text which covers the essentials of Ilm al-Sarf. It is one of the most famous and one of the most relied upon texts when it comes to teaching Ilm al-Sarf, and it's a part of curriculums around the globe. And that's one of the reasons why we have chosen Tasrif al-Izzi. There's also an abundance of shuruhat on Tasrif al-Izzi and Hawashi. And in this course, we will be depending on three particular shuruhat. The sharh of al-Taftazani, the sharh of Mullah Ali al-Qari, and the sharh of Mullah Ali al-Ushnawi. These are the three shuruhat which we will be depending on, inshallah ta'ala, in our coverage of Tasrif al-Izzi. Another point which I want to mention is that this is an intermediate to advanced course. So the way we will deal with the text of Izzi is not, for example, this is not going to be like a beginner level engagement with the meten of Tasrif al-Izzi. Rather, this will be an intermediate to advanced level of engagement with Tasrif al-Izzi. We want to understand the concepts of Ilm al-Sarf in depth. We want to apply the rules of Sarf. We want to get into the specific قواعد related to تعليل إعلال الإبدال قلب مكاني and so on and so forth. There are specific features of word conjugation in Sarf. From them is, of course, إعلال إبدال قلب مكاني. And from within these particular phenomenons is the phenomenon of hadf, or the phenomenon of qalb, and so on and so forth. We want to talk about these phenomenons, inshallah ta'ala, and we want to focus on application, the application of these rules. We don't just want to deal with these principles in a theoretical way. And for application, we will mainly be using a text called تيسير الإعلال والإبدال by Sheikh Abdul Alim Ibrahim, inshallah. So this will be an intermediate to advanced treatment of the text. This course is perfect for someone who has studied Sarf. There are students who have joined who've taken our beginner level course in Sarf, which is Sarf Baha'i. There are students who have studied more than that. But inshallah ta'ala, if someone has studied one overall comprehensive text in Sarf, which covered the fundamental concepts of Sarf, then inshallah ta'ala, they'll be able to follow us in this program. They'll be able to follow us in this program. Bi'idhnillahi al-kareem. Before I talk about the particular abwab of Sarf, which we will be covering, the particular chapters from the chapters of Sarf, which we will be covering, I want to talk briefly about the importance of studying Sarf. Why is Sarf important, right? Oftentimes, I believe, Sarf is not given the due importance that it should be given, even though it is called Ulum, the mother of all sciences. And Nahu is called the father of all sciences. Sarf, in essence, is a sister of Nahu. And classically speaking, when we talk about classical times, when the times of Imam Sibawayh and before him, and even after him for a period, the word Nahu encompassed both the rules of syntax and morphology. The word Nahu encompassed both the rules of syntax and the rules of morphology. That's why you find that in Kitab Sibawayh, for example, there are discussions on syntactical points and on morphological points. Nahu was an umbrella term in essence. It covered what we know today as Nahu, which is syntax, sentence structure, and the anatomy of an Arabic sentence. And it also covered the rules of Sarf, word conjugation, and so on and so forth. So, but when we say Nahu in our modern times, we mean something very specific, of course. We mean the study of Arabic sentence structure. And so with that definition of Nahu in mind, we say that Sarf is the sister of Nahu. And one study of grammar is incomplete without the study of Sarf. If you haven't studied Sarf and you're studying Nahu, your study of grammar is still incomplete. Another point which showcases the importance of Sarf is that Sarf teaches you how to pronounce words correctly, right? So for example, we have Sami'a yasma'u, right? How do we know which halakah to pronounce on these particular af'al? Through the study of ilm al-sarf. Sarf also teaches you how to conjugate words correctly to express variant meanings, right? If I want to convey the meaning of a past tense, I'll use fi'l madi. If I want to convey the meaning of present tense, I'll use fi'l mudari'. If I want to convey the meaning of future tense, I'll use fi'l mudari' as well, right? Of course, with qara'in. So fi'l mudari' can be used for both hal and istiqbal, but with particular qara'in, it becomes muta'ayyan for one of them. If I want to order someone, I'll use the sigha of amr, right? How am I going to form the sigha of amr? How am I going to form the order word, the order verb from different verbs? How will I form it, right? If I want to say to someone hit, I'll say idrib. But if I want to say to someone eat, I'll say kul. Why is there a hamza in idrib but not in kul? Right? If I want to say to someone see this, right? I want to order them, I'll say ri. or shahid. So why are there these variations? How do I know how to conjugate fi'l amr properly? From which type of word? Maybe I want to describe someone as being the hitter, being the one who hits. I want to describe them. I want to essentially convey the meaning of them doing that action, but with some level of continuity. I will use ism fa'il in that case, not just the verb. I won't just use daraba. I'll say darib because because relatively ism fa'il has more of an affirmation in it than the fi'l alone. Because fi'l, it has in it the meaning of huduth, an action coming into existence when it wasn't there, right? And that meaning of huduth is still there in ism fa'il, but there's also this meaning of thubut, affirmation of that thing, right? And so relative to the simple fi'il, there's more of that thubut in the ism, right? Of course, if I want to use something stronger, I'll use sifa mushabbaha, right? And sifa mushabbaha, of course, comes only from af'al lazim, only from a fi'l which is lazim. So sifa mushabbaha, there's a more there's permanence in it, and that level of permanence is not found in the ism fa'il, but it's found in the sifa mushabbaha. When I describe someone as tawil, right? They're tall. That's a it's not possible to not be tawil anymore. But for darib, that there can be a time where that person is not hitting, right? So uh how do I get to know these variations in meaning, these subtleties? Through the study of sarf, through the study of ilm al-sarf. And the final point, which illustrates the importance of sarf, is that it aids one's study of Nahu. It helps you in your study of Nahu. It helps you become better in your study of Nahu. Because, like I said, if someone wants a holistic education in grammar, they need to know both Nahu and Sarf, right? Whereas Sarf deals with the structures of individual words, it is those individual words that we use. It is those individual words that we use to make sentences. And that's why in many scholarly cultures, studying sarf takes precedence over studying nahu. They start by teaching sarf first, because sarf deals with the part, the juz, which is the individual word. And so they teach the rules pertaining to the individual word first, so that a student does not make mistakes in pronouncing those individual words. And then they teach Nahu, the rules of Nahu. After the student has learned the rules pertaining to individual words and how to form them and conjugate them and make them, now we can take him to a level where he can make sentences using and utilizing those words. The study of Sarf also aids your study of Balagha, right? So there is this level of takamul between these sciences. There's an ilaqa between them. And if someone wants a comprehensive knowledge of these technical sciences, they need to study sarf, right? Now, here just to illustrate, how sarf is quite directly related to meanings and how we use words. When we use the ma'loom form of a word, the mabni lil ma'loom form of a word, like daraba, for example, Zaydun daraba, ila akhirih, Zayd hit so and so, all right? You understand this meaning of huduth. Zayd was not hitting, now he's hitting, right? So Zayd was not hitting, but then he did the action of hitting, and now that action is done. That's what you understand from daraba, essentially. Right? So that's what huduth means. حدوث, when the scholars of Balagha mention, or the linguists generally mention that the fi'l has in it this meaning of حدوث, what they mean is that this action wasn't there, now it's there, or it happened and now it's not there anymore. In the case of past tense, in the case of present tense, it's happening, or in the case of future tense, it will happen, and so on and so forth. So that's what you understand from the simple مبني للمعلوم form ضرب, right? Zaid was not hitting, then he did the action of hitting, and now that action has been done. It's in the past. But when we use the اسم فاعل, زيد ضارب كذا وكذا, right? And the اسم فاعل can be used for different tenses and time periods as well, right? But there's this meaning of ثبوت in it, right? This affirmation of this action of hitting. But Zayd is not just being described as someone who hit, but he's being described as a hitter, right? So you can sense that subtlety in meaning. Of course, the ism al-fa'il does not have permanence in it, right? So when we describe Zayd as darib, it doesn't mean that Zayd is always 100% always hitting. Like it's like a sifatul lazimah lahu. It's a constant characteristic of his. No, that's not what ism fa'il means, right? But in relative to the fi'l, there is more of this. There's more of this affirmation of that thing for Zayd. There's, as the linguists call it, thubut in it, right? When we use the majhul form, right, the passive voice, he ضرب عمرو. Amr was hit. Amr was hit, right? So we're getting these variations in meaning by using different forms, different verb forms, different forms of mushtaqat, and so on and so forth. Sheikh Fadil al-Samurra'i, hafidhahullah, has a book on these different types of meanings of particular patterns called Ma'ani al-Abniya. Ma'ani al-Abniya. So, for example, he mentions at the start, one of the first discussions in the book is the distinction between the essential meaning of an ism and the meaning of a fi'l. He says يقول اللغويون إن الاسم يفيد الثبوت والفعل يفيد التجدد والحدوث. فإذا قلت خالد مجتهد أفاد ثبوت الاجتهاد لخالد، في حين أنك إذا قلت يجتهد خالد أفاد حدوث الاجتهاد له بعد أن لم يكن. So the ism has in it this meaning of thubut. You're affirming one thing for another thing. There's this affirmation in it. The fi'l in it has the meaning of tajaddud, renewal, and huduth, something happening after it wasn't happening, but now it's happening, or it happened, right? There's this meaning of huduth in it. And you can sense the subtle difference in Khalidun Mujtahidun and Yajtahidu Khalid, right? There's pure affirmation in Khalidun Mujtahidun, right? Where there's huduth in Yajtahidu Khalid. Also, when you say Huwa Hafid or Huwa Yahfad, he is a Hafid, a memorizer, or he is memorized. There's the subtlety in difference. The subtlety in the difference in meaning can be understood. This type of subtlety is studied in ilm al-sarf. It is studied in ilm al-sarf. So ilm al-sarf, it's important to study ilm al-sarf from a meaning-based perspective as well. If you want to understand the Arabic language in depth, sarf is important. There's another very important point I forgot to mention. If you want to be able to use classical dictionaries and even later dictionaries like Hansware and Lane's lexicon, you should know sarf. You should know sarf. because dictionary entries are based on the madda of the word, right? The essential content of the word. And you need to know rules of sarf, basic rules of sarf, for you to be able to access those dictionaries. And in overall, to gain a comprehensive outlook of the Arabic language, the Arabic word in terms of its meaning, structure, you need to study sarf. Sarf will mainly focus on the structure. It will teach you the structure. In the books of sarf, you will also find the rules of ishtiqaq, which is another separate science, according to the view of some scholars. Some scholars consider ishtiqaq to be a part of sarf. But ishtiqaq essentially is etymology. Ishtiqaq studies the relationship between words and the munasabat between them, the similarities between them. Whereas sarf is more focused on the structure of the words. But you find the rules of ishtiqaq in the books of sarf. There are very few books written separately on ishtiqaq. So studying lugha, and by lugha I mean words and their meanings, the structure of words, because the structure has an effect on the meaning, and the etymology of the word, you need to know sarf. You need to know sarf. So these three sciences, lugha, sarf, and ishtiqaq, they're very closely related to each other. Coming to the main topics, the main topics of sarf, which inshallah ta'ala we will be covering, right? If you pick up practically any book of sarf, you can technically divide it into any comprehensive book of sarf. You can divide it into these four topics. It will most likely start with fundamental concepts. And when we say fundamental concepts, we really are referring to four things. The first is the division, the categorization of words in the Arabic language into ism, fi'l, harf. Number two, the categorization of words based on the number of letters. Thulathi, ruba'i. In the case of ism jamid, you have khumasi as well. Also, the categorization of words based on the types of letters they're made up of, which are called the 7 types. In Farsi, haft aqsam. In Arabic, al-aqsam al-sab'a. Sahih, mahmuz, muda'af, and then mu'tal. طيب. And then the 12 types. And the 12 types essentially are the 12 conjugations that you get from from the masdar of thulathi mujarrad, right? These are the fundamental concepts which are introduced in pretty much every other book of sarf. The second thing that is covered in the books of sarf is conjugation. How you conjugate those 12 types and some other extra types like صفة مشبهة, اسم مبالغة, فعل تعجب, أفعل التعجب, right? How you conjugate the صيغة of تعجب, how you conjugate صفة مشبهة, how you conjugate اسم مبالغة, how you conjugate اسم فاعل, how you conjugate اسم مفعول. There are particular rules for that, right? So how you conjugate, for example, اسم فاعل for ثلاثي مجرد is different than how you conjugate for مزيد فيه and ruba'i. And also there you get some irregularities when you talk about conjugating from mu'tal words, for example, right? So the rules of conjugation are studied in the books of sarf, how you conjugate. The third topic, which is usually mentioned, very important, it is the core of ilm al-sarf, is what is referred to as ta'lilat generally, but it includes all different types of irregularities, exceptional rules related to particular words in sarf. And these rules are generally related to mahmuz, muda'af, and mu'tal words, even though there's ibdal. Ibdal happened in sahih words as well. طيب. So you get to study these principles in the books of sarf. So the books of sarf teach you how to conjugate these words properly. And the ta'lilat, they are a part of conjugations essentially, right? But what the way the books of Sarf function is, they first mention all the general rules under the rules of conjugation, and then they teach you the rules related to irregularities, which are referred to as ta'lilat. But of course, this includes i'lal and ibdal and qalb makani that happens in words. And then the final and very important aspect of ilm al-sarf is khasiyat. By khasiyat, we are referring to the meanings of particular forms and patterns, right? Is a very important part of ilm al-sarf, and there are separate works dedicated to this as well, right? So, for example, the bab, the form of tasrif, it has in it the meaning of kathra, the meaning of abundance, right? When I use the thulathi mujarrad form, sarf, right? I mean change. But when I say tasrif, I mean a lot of change, right? So patterns have different meanings. And these meanings, I want you guys to understand that these meanings affect very serious topics as well. Discussions in fiqh and tafsir. An example of that, and if someone wants to read on this further, you can refer to Tahsin al-Ma'akhid by Al-Imam al-Ghazali, where he discusses the ikhtilaf between the Shafi'iyya and the Hanafiya. The issue, famous issue in fiqh, does touching your wife or an ajnabi woman break your wudu, right? According to the Shafi'i position, it breaks your wudu. And they substantiate that with the ayah, أَوْ لَامَسْتُمُ النِّسَاء. And one of the responses of the Hanafiya is that lamasa is from the bab, from the form, the pattern of mufa'ala. And the pattern of mufa'ala has in it the meaning of two people being involved in doing the action. And so that alludes to it's the meaning of lamasa being jima' or intercourse, right? The Shafi'iyya have a number of responses. From them is that mufa'ala, the pattern mufa'ala, can be used for the simple verbal meaning as well, which is lams, just touching, right? Because we do that in the case of like safara, for example. We say safara Zaydun. Zayd traveled. Two people are not involved. It's just one person doing the action, right? There are other responses as well. But these types of discussions have sarfi discussions have a direct impact on how you understand rulings as well. So khasiyat, this part of ilm al-sarf discusses the meanings of particular forms and patterns. And inshallah ta'ala, in this course, we plan to cover all four of these chapters of sarf. So inshallah ta'ala, we aim to study sarf very comprehensively, bi'idhnillahi al-kareem. Alhamdulillah, we've spoken about the course in particular. We said that we'll cover the whole of Tasrif al-Izzi, but Izzi is going to be a vehicle. It's going to be a vehicle, and we'll try to put as much flesh on it as possible, inshallah ta'ala. Our dependence is going to be on these three shuruhat, as I mentioned, and it's going to be an intermediate to advanced treatment of the text with focus on application, inshallah ta'ala. We've also spoken about the importance of sarf, how it affects how you understand meanings of words and so on and so forth. Coming now to the teaching methodology, right? So inshallah ta'ala, in every lesson there will be slides. I will try my best to prepare slides, inshallah ta'ala. There will be notes. Notes will be given to you guys as well, inshallah. And our first aim will be to explain concepts. We'll explain concepts. We want to really understand this science. And then inshallah ta'ala, we will also be clarifying the text. So it's not going to be like just a very simple traditional reading of the text and just commenting on it. No. Inshallah ta'ala, there will be slides. We'll explain the concepts, then we'll read the text. We'll explain the meanings there. But the main aim is to really understand the concepts of ilm al-sarf, from the fundamental concepts all the way to the khasiyat, inshallah ta'ala, bi'idhnillahi al-kareem. So teaching methodology, I mean, is the way we're going to teach generally is that we'll explain the concept. In every lesson, we'll explain the concepts first, give examples, and then we'll clarify the text. And towards the end, Most of the application sort of work will be given as homework, and then inshallah ta'ala, you guys will share your work in the group, and then we can have a class discussion and we can have corrections regarding that as well. Specifically on the topic of i'lal and ibdal, which is one of the more challenging aspects of sarf, we'll be using Taysir al-i'lal wal-ibdal by Sheikh Abdul Alim Ibrahim, inshallah ta'ala. So, with that, I have introduced the idea of the course, what we plan on doing, inshallah ta'ala. We plan to study Tasrif al-Izzi in depth. But like I said, we're going to use it as a vehicle to understand the essentials of Sarf. Sarf is a very important science from the sciences of the Arabic language, and one's study of Arabic grammar is incomplete without the study of Sarf. So let's study Sarf, inshallah. Barakallahu fikum for listening. If you guys have any questions, you're welcome to ask. Brother Abdurrahman, do you have any questions?
No. It's pretty clear. I just was wondering if we're going to actually get into how to actually use this on
Come again, your voice is I couldn't hear you properly.
I said no. That's everything pretty clear. I just wanted the only thing I'm very, very confused on at this point is like how to actually use the stuff.
I'm sorry, your voice is breaking up, Akhi.
I'll text it to you.
Barakallahu feekum. We'll end our session here. Brother Abdurrahman, please share your question in the group, inshallah ta'ala. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum.